Hampshire. Thank you, New Hampshire. We love you, New Hampshire. Hello, America. I'm Amy Klobuchar, and I will beat Donald Trump. My heart is full tonight. My heart is full tonight. While there are still ballots left to count, we have beaten the odds every step of the way. We have done it on the merits, we have done it with ideas, and we have done it with hard work, because we are resilient and strong as the people of this great nation. Thank you to our incredible staff and our unstoppable volunteers, my wonderful husband, John, our daughter, Abigail, and the people of New Hampshire. Because of you, we are taking this campaign to Nevada. We are going to South Carolina. And we are taking this message of unity to the country. Because we know in our hearts that in a democracy, it is not about the loudest voice or the biggest bank account. It is about the best idea and about the person who can turn those ideas into action. We know that we cannot win big by trying to outdivide the divider-in-chief. We know that we win by bringing people with us instead of shutting them out. Donald Trump's worst nightmare is that the people in the middle, the people who have had enough of the name calling and the mudslinging, have someone to vote for in November. I cannot wait to bring our green bus around the country. I cannot wait to win the nomination. I cannot wait to build a movement and win with a movement of fired up Democrats, of independents and moderate Republicans that see this election as we do. We see it as an economic check on this president. We see it as a patriotism check, and we see it as a decency check. Because in the end, we know that what unites us is so much bigger than what divides us. And we know that we believe, so many of us believe, that the heart of America is bigger than the heart of this guy in the White House. Tonight is about grit, and my story, like so many of yours, is one of resilience. I announced my candidacy in the middle of a Minnesota blizzard, and there were a lot of people that predicted I wouldn't even get through that speech, but not the people of my state and not the people of New Hampshire. Except then they predicted that we wouldn't make it through the summer. We did. Then they predicted we wouldn't make it to the debates. And man, were we at the debate in New Hampshire. What we've been is steady, we've been strong, and we've never quit. I think that sounds pretty good for a president. But across the months and months and miles of this race, we redefined the word grit. You see it with our Happy Scrappy campaign. You saw it in our 10-county, 30-hour tour in the middle of a nor'easter. Let's not forget that. You saw it in our early morning diner stops, on our late night rallies, and yes, you saw it on that debate stage. Just like so many of you out there, I know a little bit about resilience. My grandpa worked 1,500 feet underground in the mines in northern Minnesota. He never graduated from high school because his parents were sick. He had 9 brothers and sisters, and he had to help raise them. And every day he would go down in that cage in that mine carrying a lunch bucket that my grandma would pack. His youngest sister, Hannah, was only 8 years old when they put her in an orphanage, and he vowed after his parents died that he would go and get her. And 2 years later, he borrowed a car, he went to Duluth, and he brought her home. He and my grandma saved money in a coffee can in their basement to send my dad to a 2-year community college. My dad then became a newspaper man. My mom, she was born in Milwaukee, the site of our next convention. And she came to Minnesota and taught 2nd grade until she was 70 years old. And I still meet people that say she was their favorite teacher. So I stand before you today as a granddaughter of an iron ore miner, as a daughter of a teacher and a newspaper man, as the first woman elected to the U.S. Senate from the state of Minnesota, and a candidate for President of the United States. That, my friends, that is because we live in a country of shared dreams, that no matter where you come from, no matter who you know, no matter the color of your skin, no matter where you worship, no matter who you love, that you can make it in the United States of America. I didn't have a perfect life. My dad struggled with alcoholism his whole life, and by the time John and I got married, he got his 3rd DWI. And then the judge said to him, you got to decide jail or treatment. And he chose treatment. And in his words, he was pursued by grace. I believe that everyone in this country should have that opportunity to be pursued by grace. When Abigail was born, we thought it was going to be this perfect thing, but she was really sick, and she couldn't swallow. And she was in intensive care. And back then, the insurance companies had a rule, and they kicked me out of the hospital, even though she was in intensive care, in 24 hours. And a few months later, I went to the legislature, worked with a number of legislators, and we passed one of the first laws in the country guaranteeing new moms and their babies a 48-hour hospital stay. That's how I do my work. And as my friend Elizabeth noted earlier tonight, people told me, just like they told her, that they didn't think a woman could be elected. In my case, it was elected to the U.S. Senate. No woman had ever done it before. But I came back, I defied expectations, and I won. And I have done it. And I have done it over and over again in the reddest of red districts and the bluest of blue districts. And when I got to the U.S. Senate, people told me, oh, it's so hard to get things done. Well, in that gridlock of Washington, D.C., I have passed over 100 bills as the lead Democrat because I did not give up. And tonight in New Hampshire, as everyone had counted us out, even a week ago, thank you, pundits, I came back and we delivered. We have been on quite a journey together, and you've learned this about me. I never give up. But my story is nothing compared to the resilience that I've seen all over this country. The mom in California who lost her child to gun violence. And even through her grief and heartbreak, she has joined the fight to keep our children safe. The immigrant who works 2 jobs and still struggles to put food on the table, but is determined to raise her kids in America so that they have a better future. The farmer who's facing bankruptcy because of bad Trump policies, but persists in working the land, just like his parents and his grandparents before him. America deserves a president who doesn't give up or give in just because a decision is hard. America deserves a president who is as resilient as her people. America deserves a president who's going to take on the challenges of our time: climate change and affordable education and college, immigration reform, justice and democracy, and yes, bringing down the cost of health care. Our country cannot take another 4 years of Donald Trump. The rule of law can't withstand another 4 years of a president who thinks that he is above it. Our collective sense of decency can't handle another 4 years of a president who doesn't care about it. Our democracy can't tolerate another 4 years of a president who wants to bulldoze right through it. And our American dream cannot tolerate a president that thinks he can choose who lives it. The president might as well have a sign on his desk that says, "The buck stops anywhere but here." He blames everyone. He blames, think about this, for anything that goes wrong. He blames Barack Obama. He blames the city of Baltimore. He blames the head of the Federal Reserve that he appointed. He blames the energy secretary that he nominated. He blames the city of Baltimore. He blames the entire kingdom of Denmark. Who does that? And my favorite recent one, he blames the Prime Minister of Canada for cutting him out of the Canadian version of Home Alone 2. That's what this guy does. That is Donald Trump. I think we can do better, because for the people of this country, when things go wrong, they don't have anyone to blame. They just have to pick themselves up. And I can promise you this: when I am behind that desk, I will take responsibility instead of passing it on. I will reach across the aisle and work with Americans in good faith instead of picking fights. I will bring this country together instead of tearing it apart. Some of you have heard the story about Franklin Delano Roosevelt. So he was beloved, and when he died, they put his body on a train, and it went through the countryside to Washington, D.C. And people would spontaneously stand next to those rail tracks to show their respects. And the story goes that one guy was standing there sobbing. Regular guy, had his hat across his chest. And this reporter says to him, "Sir, did you know President Roosevelt? Do you mind me asking, did you know him?" And the guy says, "No, I didn't know President Roosevelt, but he knew me. He knew me." That is what's lacking right now in the White House. That empathy, that ability of a president to put himself or herself in the shoes of the people of this country. What is lacking is that sacred trust between the people of this nation and the President of the United States. And my friends, I will restore that trust. If you are having trouble deciding between filling a prescription or filling your refrigerator with food, I know you, and I will fight for you. If you cannot decide how you're going to stretch that paycheck to pay for your rent or pay your mortgage, I know you, and I will fight for you. And if you are having trouble deciding how are you going to pay for the child care for your kids and the long-term care for your parents, I know you, and I will fight for you. If you want a Democratic nominee who can make our tent bigger, who can make our coalition wider and our coattails longer, I know you, and I will fight for you. And if you feel stuck in the extremes of our politics and you are tired of the noise and the nonsense, you have a home with me. If you want a nominee who can stand up to Donald Trump on that debate stage, which you well know I can do, I need your votes, yes. And I'm going to need those votes of the people in Nevada, yes. And I'm going to need the votes in South Carolina and beyond. But most of all, I need your hearts. I don't have that big bank account. I don't have that big name of some of the other people that are in this race. And I am not a newcomer with no political record. But what I do is get things done. What I have is your back. So I ask you to join us at amyklobuchar.com. Join our campaign. Join our campaign. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, New Hampshire. We are on to Nevada because the best is yet to come.